want it. Great. Welcome to the Route to Parks grants program 2021 grant cycle, which is our second grant cycle here at Parks California. We'll be sharing information about the program itself, the selection criteria. We'll also share a little bit about what happened in 2021, the current grant cycle, and then we'll go into the criteria, the selection criteria for the current grant opportunity. We will have time at the end for questions. So you can either hold off and do questions there, or if a question comes up, feel free to drop it into chat and Lillian will help us capture those questions and we can go ahead and kind of address them towards the end. Like I said, we'll be recording this meeting and then we'll upload it to the website in case you have colleagues or maybe you have another member who wants to participate and listen in. That'll be available to you all later this week. So with that, we have a question for you as well. Lillian, can you help us launch this poll question in recognition that today is a big day? How are you all doing about today's big reopening? Are you excited, optimistic, nervous, uncertain, or like me, all of the above?
You know, I'm not allowed to vote. I didn't know that. Zoom does not let the panelists vote in the polls.
You cannot influence this stuff.
I guess so, yeah. It's very scientific, this poll. We'll be using this.
Right? Look at this. But it looks like there's still some answers trickling in, but for the most part, optimistic and all of the above. I completely feel you all. Yep, sounds right. Well, thank you so much. Look at that. Final results, 39% optimistic, 32% all of the above. Thank you for participating in that. We'll do introductions so that you know who is on your screen. I'll start with my name. My name is Miriam. Oh, here, let me do agenda first. So we'll do introductions and we'll introduce ourselves. Jeff is going to walk us through Parks California, who we are as an organization. Then we'll go into the Route to Parks grant application. We'll review important dates related to this grant opportunity, and then we'll do Q&A. So let's do introductions. I'm Marian. I'm based in San Diego, and for those of you who applied last year or received funding or have reached out to us related to this grant opportunity, we probably have connected. And I am managing this program in support of Parks California. I'm super excited to be with you. This past year was really exciting to just read through all of the proposals and the incredible work that you're doing to connect people to nature and just learn about your dedication and commitment to this work. Much, much gratitude for everything that you do. I'll turn it over to Lillian for introductions, and then Jeff, I'll have you take it away from there.
Hello, my name is Lillian. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator. I joined Parks California back in August, and I was part of the Route to Parks first cycle and now part of the second cycle. My favorite part of this grant program is I get to hear about all the amazing projects that everyone else is doing and all the organizations where they're working. So it's a pleasure to learn about everyone. And I'll hand it off to Jeff.
Yeah, hi everybody. Jeff Kish, I'm the Vice President of Programs for Parks California, based out of Davis. You see from the pictures, Miriam looks identical to the picture that was taken 2 years ago, but clearly the pandemic has had a bigger effect on me, I'd say. Why don't we talk a bit about Parks California and sort of what we're about as an organization. So we are 2 years old, a bit about maybe 2.5, add in all our staff, but really, like at our core, we believe that everyone deserves a world-class park experience in California and that all can benefit from a lifelong connection with nature. If you think about the types of work that we're doing, as we've built out our programs for the first 2 years, our key focus areas have been about access and equitable access to parks. For us, that means not only the things that we're going to talk about today with the transportation, but the second half of this grant is also just as important to us, and that's the experience that people have when they're in the parks. So that having a world-class experience ultimately leads to a desire to come back, to bring others to parks, to make parks more of their life, and develop this true connection that should be lifelong with the natural world. The other side of the work that we do is actually about the natural resource protection itself and looking at issues like climate change and what we can do as a nonprofit entity to help the department work on the long-term health of these parks. Next slide, Marion. And so this is our mission, to help strengthen parks and inspire all to experience these extraordinary places. As we move to the next slide, I will talk a bit about how we do this. So really what we are about is partnership. We were created to be the statutory partner to California State Parks, which means the California legislature created our organization. We're intended to be an inside partner and work hand in hand with the department and its staff as a nonprofit. And so we use our nonprofit authorities very much in collaboration with the department to do more. But also when we talk about partnership, the key thing for us is helping other organizations develop their own partnerships with state parks. So on the ground at a local level across California, how can we as a statewide nonprofit help organizations develop their own personal connections and relationships that allow a lot closer collaboration between communities and the parks themselves. Next slide. So we do work statewide. We're a small organization, but the intent is that we're looking across California, and one of the reasons that we're working today is we do this work with partners. And so the many community groups that are on the phone today, this is how we think about how we do our work. It's enabling the partnerships to happen, but also supporting those partners to make that work as strong and seamlessly as possible. Where we can, we really are all about multi-collaborative partnerships, where you're bringing in different groups or perhaps private sector or nonprofits to try to work together to solve problems. We're very interested in looking at the community aspects, both in who is coming to the parks, but in also how programs are designed and how can we dive into communities to allow this co-creation of programs at a very meaningful level. As we go about this work, we think nothing is more important than elevating the stories of the nonprofit partners that receive our grants. You might see some of our blog posts that have come out the past year about some of our previous grantees. We want to help tell the stories about what's going on the ground and how communities really are connecting with nature in our California state parks. And finally, we try to accelerate innovation. And so what that means is someone has a great idea for a way to develop a program or a type of transportation. We want to share that idea and see if we can bring it to other parks, have other groups try it, and really try to just work together to bring up everybody as a whole and how we think about the work being done here. And so I think with that, I will turn it over to Marion to talk a bit about Route to Parks.
Awesome. Thank you for that context, Jeff. I know we're still fairly new as an organization, and as folks consider applying for this, they often want to know who is the organization providing these funds. So I think this gives us great context into our approach and our relationship with state parks. Thank you for that. We're going to launch another second poll, Lillian, before we go into the Route to Parks program, and it's about y'all. Tell us about your beginnings, your early relationship. How did that relationship with nature begin? Was it through playing, outdoor recreation, stewardship, advocacy, or some other forms? Maybe cultural, or maybe some heritage pieces to it. Look at this. Play seems to be leading. Oh, I'm interested to learn more about the other. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yours.
I was very lucky that I got to travel quite a bit overseas and see some of the world's most amazing places as a kid. And that has always had an impact on me as like a feeling of needing to protect these places so that future generations can have those experiences that I had. And so that's really what got me into the work, I think.
Yeah. That's amazing how that global perspective and now the California perspective comes in.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For me, I think similar to the audience here, it was definitely play and just connection, right? Sometimes we go to places as a form of recreation or just get out and get dirty and have fun. And that's definitely my connection. So it's great to see how people, this to me shows how everybody's connection to nature is different. And this definitely shows that. Thank you all for participating. Let me close this out and then take us to the next slide. So now for what we're here to learn about, friends, Route to Parks. The Route to Parks program is a new program, fairly new. Last year, like I said, was the first grants program that we had. And when we launched it, we had no idea what to expect because we were new as an organization. So we were introducing ourselves, and then we were also introducing a grant program. This program is in support of Transportation Initiative, that is a partnership and an initiative that we have with California State Parks. So we are using public funds to support this. And then because of our approach and what Jeff has shared with you is we augment that through partnership and collaboration so that we can double our impact and support out in the community. So at the end of the first closure of the Route to Parks grant cycle, so not closure, but when folks were able to submit their proposal, we had received 52 proposals. And as you can see, the requesting amount of those proposals was close to $1 million. And collectively, if we would have had funding for all of them, we would have reached about 55,000 people. Well, at least an estimate, right? Because I think the pandemic changed all of our programming and what we were hoping to do. So that's what we got. Those were the amount of proposals submitted and the requests. And then what were we able to fund? About 40% of them. Collectively, we had about $320,000 to award, and we were able to fund the top 20 proposals. That's the funding that we were able to do. And again, that's a combination of public funds and then private sector funds that we were able to bring in to augment those dollars. Collectively, those proposals have an average of a reach of 9,000 people. And as we look at the participant and who they would have reached, it's, as you can see, it's really a diverse group of people. Some of them were connected to schools and some of them were not. So that's really neat to see because that also gives us insight into the type of programming and relationships and partnerships that you have on the ground to connect people to the outdoors. So going into now 2021, 2022, our goal is to also, one, continue to use the public funds, and then we feel really confident about at minimum matching the funds that we were able to do last year. So we will know more, of course, in August, but we feel really confident about our ability to do the same or equal to what we did last year. So the goal for this program is to improve access to state parks so that people can create authentic connections with nature. So as you can see, this one is a little bit broader than other opportunities. We're not defining it has to be outdoor education or it has to be education focused or it has to be like any of those. What we want to do is make sure that people in your programs give the ability to participants to define what that connection to the outdoors is. The criteria, the three things that are a must of any proposal that would be taken into consideration is, of course, what we want to do is reduce the transportation barrier to access to parks. So the transportation is a key component of this. The second one, experiences have to be at California State Parks, or at least the majority of those. And that goes into our relationship and partnership with California State Parks and also where the significance of the funding is coming from. And then the third is the people side of it, who we want to reach. We want to reach people who may be facing financial challenges getting to or enjoying parks. The applicants, either government entities or 501c3s. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them on chat, or you can hold on them and we can talk about them during the end. So now what we're going to do is go over the actual application. I won't go into every question because I think some of them you'll be able to understand. What I will do is talk a little bit more about the ones that are in green, and hopefully the color is not too distracting for you all. Let me just move so that I can see the question. So the first one is describe the issue affecting the community's access to state parks and beaches. What is your organization's prior involvement on this issue? So this one, as you can see, is really tied to the selection criteria. We want to understand the community and what the challenges are and how this program and how you all have been involved in really tackling this issue. The second one, what approaches will you take to create solutions to the issues you are describing? Specifically, what specifically will the participants do, and what are your transportation plans? So this one is a little bit about what is the experience, what is the approach, what is the programming looking like, and then addressing the challenge, right? And because of the lens towards transportation, we want to learn a little bit about what are those challenges, either for the participants or for you, and how are you closing that gap? And then the other thing that we want to know is the participant experience. What are they doing? How is this a one-touch experience? Is this a multi-touch relationship with the participants? What are they going to do? Where are they going to go? How many parks are they going to get to experience? All of that information, honestly, is what gets me super excited. But this also gives us an idea of your approach and the type of experience that the participants are going through. The next one, project goals, outputs, and outcomes. So I'll go through 2, 3, and 4. Project outputs. So these are the direct results of the activities taken. So for example, are they events? Are there community meetings? Those type of pieces would be in this category. The participant outcomes, this is tied to what, from the participant's perspective and from what you are observing, are there any changes in their knowledge, attitude, or behavior that are a result of the effort that you're doing? And then number 4 here, how will success be measured? What we want to learn here is, how are you measuring the impact? Are you doing surveys pre and post? Are you doing observations during or after the experience? Is it anecdotal? Tell us a little bit about that as well, if that is equally as important as well as we think about one, telling the impact story, and also collectively as a community sharing that collective impact. This last category here on the questions, we'll go over 1, 2, and 3. The first one is, help us better understand who the program will be serving. Tell us about the population, geographic, and community served. So if you applied or reviewed the 2020 proposal, this was a question where we also encourage participants or applicants to use the community fact finder. We removed that and then use this as a 2-piece question. One, for you to tell us who the community is in a narrative form. And then it's followed up with the actual numbers. So population, demographics, age range. So that'll be, and those will be estimates. And we made that change because of feedback. So thank you all who shared feedback on that tool. The second question here is, how will you reach the audience? What we're interested in is learning about how you engage with the community. Do you reach them through social media, through a partnership, through a relationship with schools? How do you engage with the community? And then the other piece that we want to learn is, do you involve program participants in the program development process? Are they involved in co-designing these experiences with you? And that could be whether it's a brainstorm or surveys or interviews, any of that information, if it does take place, we'd love to learn a little bit about that as well. This last section are the attachments. And the one that I will go through is number 2, letter of acknowledgement. So this one is related to our connection to California State Parks. And one of the goals of this program too is to help strengthen the relationship between organizations on the ground and California state parks. With the letter of acknowledgement, the intent is to create that dialogue at the local level, to share with state parks what the program that you're proposing that they're aware of it, that they also maybe brainstorm some ideas with you, that there's collaboration and dialogue. I do encourage you to, as soon as you think or you know you're going to be applying, to start that dialogue early. That is a letter, they have a template, but the intent here is to create that relationship so that can be cultivated over time, right? Since last year, we've made some upgrades. We have a new grant management software system for you all to submit the proposal. We're using Fondant, and I believe several of you are familiar with this solution. It's already live. We have the hyperlink on the Route to Parks homepage, and it's very, very user-friendly. You would be able to log in, create an account, start reviewing the questions. You can preview the questions, or you can also do stop and go until the deadline of August 6th. What is great about this tool is that not only does it allow you to work over it during a period of time, but it also allows you to add other folks in case you're collaborating on the proposal. So I hope this upgrade is good and it's exciting and much easier experience for you all as you think about or as you submit the 2021 grant proposal. So with that, we have another poll. Lillian, can you help us launch it? What we want to know is, for those of you on the call, now that we walked through the program, are you thinking of applying for an existing program or a new program? Look at that, a new program. Looks like new programs is leading. 56. Wow. I think another maybe answer that we could have added here is maybe an existing program with updates, right? So it's now a lot of programs are taking it just have slight pivots because of COVID and the restrictions.
There's a lot of time during COVID to think up new ideas, I guess.
Right? Look at that, almost 50-50. Awesome, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Cool, I have a couple other slides and then we're gonna go ahead and open it up for questions. We wanna share a couple resources and ideas. The first one is group outings, special permits with California State Parks. Today is the reopening, and we know a lot of businesses are reopening at full capacity. What State Parks is doing is they're really leaning into what the local county guidelines are to really take that approach of what are we going to do? Are we going to do small groups? Are we going to phase into small, medium, and large over time? So my recommendation and our recommendation for you is to check in with your local state park representative to find out what is happening at your county level, which will then inform how they're processing group outings, special permits. That's the first one. The second one are these amazing resources that California State Parks has. The PORTS program, it's the K-12 virtual park ranger program. That also, not only is it for K-12, but they have also expanded to reach other groups too. So if that is something that you're interested in, you can check them out on the website. The Junior Ranger program as well predominantly takes place in the summertime, but that could be another program that could be used too. Either you can use it as a pre or as a post activity with your participants. Agents of Discovery, it's kind of like a geocaching interactive activity that could be used at the park as well. That's another great resource and tool. And then the virtual tours, of course, that over the past year we have seen just explode because of the need to visit parks virtually. These are all great resources. They're not at, these programs are not at the 280 state parks, so I do encourage you to check out the park that is closest to you or that you might be interested in and see if that's available there. But these are great resources and they're pretty fun as well. Important dates to share. We are hosting office hours starting next week, so June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And I also have carved time for additional office hours in July, and I'll pull them up as Lillian reads out some questions. But those are opportunities to schedule a 15-minute conversation with myself. And if you have any questions about your particular program or your proposal, that would be the time to go into a very, very focused conversation about your program. So I hope that you take just take advantage of those opportunities to engage with us and help provide any clarity you might have about the proposal or any other questions that we have. The other big date to note is August 6th. August 6th, 5 p.m. is the deadline to submit the proposal. And again, we'll be using Fondant as a tool to submit those proposals and those attachments. But then the date to note here is the first Friday of August. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to Lillian to see if you have seen any questions come in or see if folks have any questions. They can submit them right now during chat.
Yes, so we have a few questions. Before we go into the questions, we had someone ask if you could repeat the clarification on the letter of acknowledgement.
Yeah, a letter of acknowledgement. So the letter of acknowledgement is once you know you're interested in submitting a proposal, what we encourage you to do is connect with state parks, the park where you're intending to host these experiences or these outings, and have a conversation with them and say, hey, this is what I'm proposing to do. These are the participants, these are the number of visits, and have a dialogue with the local parks team. Once you're familiar with them, they are aware of this program, then you can say, fantastic, we're submitting this program. Can you provide a letter of acknowledgement? That letter must be attached to the proposal.
And I will say from last year's experience, try as best you can to get these letters done early. There's only so many park districts, even though there's 280 parks, there are not 280 different staff. So they all usually will typically end up in a few people's hands, and it's difficult for them to try to write 15 of these on the last day before the grants are due. So as best you can, try to have these conversations early, and it'll be more likely that you'll get your letter in time for the application deadline.
Great reminder, thank you, Jeff.
We have a question that was related to the poll. By new programs, did we mean new to parks, or do we mean new as in pilot programs?
Oh, that's a great clarifying question. You know, for us, I think we're curious, right? Who's in the audience? Are they intending to launch a new program within their own organization in relationship with state parks? Or is the idea that they have in mind is submitting a proposal that is already an existing program?
And also similar to or related to that, if they're looking to but have not yet started programming in California state parks, can they still apply to funding for current programs?
For current programs, if programs are currently not at California state parks, this is the time to start having those ideas of where you want to go to California state parks, and then have the conversation with the local staff too. The program is intended to fund outings at California state parks. So if that is not something that's part of that outing schedule, you want to add it now, it definitely is an option, but we do ask that at least the funding that is coming through, if it is most of the outings for them to take place at California state parks.
We had a question that we could kind of summarize to obtaining special access permits for certain programming. I think this is something that you should also connect to your local state parks about when you start the discussion about obtaining a letter of acknowledgement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it depends, all outings are different, right? Some of them are small and don't require a special permit. Other ones do. If your program does require a special permit and there's a fee associated to that, that is absolutely a cost that can be added to your proposal. So this proposal and this program can support the programmatic costs associated to that program at state parks. So programmatic costs, staff time, and of course the transportation, which is the barrier that we want to decrease for people accessing state parks.
We have a question about how do we define underrepresented communities?
Great question. This one is financial. People who are financially having trouble accessing state parks. Traditional words are low income, Title I. So the ones that are defined by income and that level.
And is there a preferred range in terms of program reach? So this is kind of the size of their attendee groups.
No. It's based on the experience, right? We often see programs that reach a lot of people and some of them that reach small groups of people. Even the current grant community that we have, we really have them and they range. Some of them are really small and touch people multiple times. Other ones reach maybe people a couple times, but they reach a much larger audience. Because experiences do range, there isn't a set criteria that say this is the direction that we're going to go. We want to read your narrative and your approach and how you're connecting with people and how they're experiencing nature. So that's what we want to learn. We don't have specific criteria as to it must meet X number of people or no more than X people need to be a part of this proposal.
And I think that played out in who we funded last year too. I mean, it really ran the gamut of groups that were like 3 or 4 day experiences in state parks for a small number of people to field trips, which were bringing hundreds, if not thousands of kids to a state park. So the end results were a variety of different types of experiences were funded.
Related to experiences, if outings are youth and family camping, will grantees need to secure reservations via Reserve California or some other method?
The preferred, you could do the group outings, the group campsites, and a lot of those are a separate reservation system. You can, as you start the dialogue with parks, ask them what their recommendation is. Sometimes they might have their own booking system for those particular campsites, but they might have some tips for you. But this also reminds me, Lillian, of the participants. So as we look at the criteria for this grant, it's really wide ranging as well. It's not specifically to reach children or young adults or families. It could be really across the board as well. What we're looking at are those meaningful connections. Who is your community that's serving? Are we breaking down some of those barriers for access to parks? And then, of course, addressing the transportation piece of it too.
We have a question about the letter of acknowledgement. Is this signed by the district superintendent? If not, who is the point of contact at the local level, or where can we find that information?
Yeah. We have all the district superintendents have been notified and are aware of this grant program. They know that folks are going to be reaching out to them. If there's a local organization who would be applying for a park in their district, it would be up to the superintendent to say, hey, I will write the letter. Or if they say, hey, let me connect you with a staff person on the team, and they would be able to provide that letter. So I would direct you to the district superintendent and then have that person make the decision whether it's going to be them or somebody else on their team.
So related to our scoring criteria and rubric, are we able to share that information, and will it include factors that look at race and sexuality?
Great question. We do have a rubric. This also reminds me, one of the things that we're doing this year is we're kicking off a grant review committee of external folks. And the idea here is to bring perspectives, experience perspective, but also from different regions to ensure that we kind of look at the entire grantee community with fresh perspectives. And it's not just through the lens of Parks California, though we do try to be very, very broad on that as well. So we're launching that. They will help us also review all of the proposals. As for the rubric, we're still working on that. We're still finalizing, working with our evaluation partner at the University of San Diego, the Nonprofit Institute, just to make sure that we make some improvements on last year's. I don't know, we'll have it finalized fairly quick to publish it. But what we're doing is we're essentially using the selection criteria as the top indicator, and then the programs itself. So the questions that we reviewed, those are the ones that we're looking at. As far as demographics, what we're looking at, what are we looking at? I think we're asking, oh, now you're questioning my memory. Race, ethnicity, age range, and then the income piece of it, but because that's part of the audience that we want to reach.
And the questions we have are related to the transportation portion. So what percentage of the project budget can be used for school bus transportation?
You know what, you tell us what the need is. If you're going to use bus transportation to close that gap, and that's the best one, then fantastic. That's the most appropriate for your program, right? Include it in the budget. Make that ask to ensure that, one, that is covered in the proposal, because that's the intent of the program, right? But we're not directing or asking folks to only use particular methods of transportation. We really want to use your insight and support you in what you think is the greatest solution to reduce that barrier to participants.
And could you offer examples of past innovative transportation approaches?
Ooh, great question. Well, I can say that a lot of them are taking place this summer because of the pandemic, but there have been some interesting ones, right? Just because of COVID and the restrictions, they've had to think about, okay, well, we can't use a traditional shuttle system, so we might have to do two, or we might not do public transportation. We might have to do shuttle system where the capacity of that shuttle is 50% or less, windows down, all of that. But I think a lot of the programs from the current grantee community, they're actually about to do most of their outings this summer because of the uplift of those restrictions. What I did see in some of the proposals were rideshare, partnering with schools, and other kind of private shuttle transportation, but with a strong lens towards sustainability or giving back to community. Those are the ones that stand out right now in this current cycle.
You know, Marion, I think a part of that question was, can this be replicated elsewhere? So as they come up with something innovative transportation-wise that we could share with other groups that would really help like break down some of these transportation barriers statewide, that was a really good idea. But as far as like actual transportation ideas, there was a variety of interesting things. We saw everything from funding the metro rides in an urban park to purchasing snowshoes to do some exploration in the mountains. So Lots of creativity coming from the groups, I found.
Yeah.
Let's see. In regards to transportation being a major part of the grant funding requests, if the group already has transportation, what % can be used for other program expenses? Or is this dependent on the organization's needs?
Can you repeat that question, Lillian?
If the group already has transportation, what % can be used for to fund the program expenses?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it depends, right? Because some organizations have their own vehicles. So I don't know the situation from the person that's asking, but some of them have their own transportation vehicles, right? But there's still the cost of managing those vehicles. So that could be an additional expense that could be covered under this grant. If they have maybe another grant, right, that's covering transportation costs. If you want to augment those outings to include state parks, that could be a potential way that could be used. But the funds could be used towards transportation, towards the programmatic experience at state parks, and then the program staff to facilitate such experience. I think that person should book a 15-minute call and we can talk about that question.
And I believe that's all the questions that we've had come in.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you all for your time. On the website, you will find on the Route to Parks landing page for Parks California, you will find information about the portal. You will also find information on booking your 15-minute call or check-in if you want to book one of those. I think right now we just have like emailing at info@parkscalifornia.org. So that could be a way to do it. Those again are happening next week. And then again in July, we'll go ahead and update it on the website so you can have that. Because I know a lot of folks maybe might have questions as they actually go into the actual application. So we'll do that in July as well. But with that, I do want to thank you for your time, for listening, for even peeking and having curiosity about this grant opportunity. I hope it is an opportunity that matches your needs and that we're able to support the great work that you all are doing on the ground. Again, to build those relationships with nature that we all know are so valuable to all. Jeff, any closing remarks?
No, I mean, I was just absolutely inspired last year reading all of the different applications statewide of the great work that's being done out there, and just want to thank all the people on the call today for the work that you do, because it's incredibly impactful, and where we can help tell these stories and provide some funding, we are here to do that in partnership with you.
Thank you all. Have a fantastic day. Thank you, Lillian and Jeff.